Welcome, TEI family, to another episode of The Everyday Investor. Today we have a very special guest with us. This person owns 25 patents throughout a number of different countries. One of her products, the SnapIt Screw, has sold over 5 million units to date, and the repair kit, which includes the SnapIt Screw, has sold over 400,000 units to date. She has earned a number of awards for being an inventor as well as an entrepreneur. Please help me welcome Nancy Tedeschi. How's it going, Nancy?
How you doing?
I am doing pretty good. I was telling you offline that I am very excited for this interview just because your story is amazing. And again, I think the audience is going to get a lot of value from hearing you and just kind of how you started and where you are now today. I guess, but a question I like to ask all the guests is, what did you do before becoming an inventor, before having a patent? What was the past life? Did you work in corporate America? Were you an entrepreneur always? How did that look?
Well, I actually was a late bloomer. I barely got out of high school, and my father was a professor, and my whole life was grounded on education, and that's how they taught us. But I was bullied very badly when I was a child, and so I kind of withdrew from the world and barely got an education in high school. And then right after high school, I didn't go to college, and that was a no-no in my family. So back when I was about 24, I was thinking on my life and everything. I ended up saying, well, I'm going to give this college stuff a try. And I applied to a community college, and I didn't get in because my grades were so bad. Then I had to take remedial courses in order to get myself into the community college. Wow. And when I got into the community college after my remedial classes, I got a 4.0 average, was on the president's list, and then after I got my 2-year degree, I transferred over to Albany State University in upstate New York. And when I got out of school, I ended up working, which is really a wild story. I worked for NFL Films, and I worked at NBC on the 1988 Olympics, and for Road to Calgary, Road to Seoul, which was a program where we introduced all the athletes and went to their hometowns and did how when you watch the Olympics, they go to their hometown and do the story. Well, I was in charge of hiring all the camera people, all the sound people, and then I went to NFL Films and I worked there for a couple of years. And then I had a family and I didn't want to travel anymore. And I thought I was going to be a housewife. And that lasted about 2 months. I got home, and that raising a child was a million times harder than working outside the home. And I ended up, didn't know what to do because I didn't want to travel. So what I ended up doing was I went to work selling cars for a living. I sold Hondas. And this is a fast version. But anyway, I sold cars for a living and got to the pinnacle of that. I mean, I was making like $150,000 a year. I worked for a company that was family owned, so there's no place for me to go. And I wanted to go someplace else. Right. So I ended up waiting on a girl to sell her a car who was in the mortgage industry. And she ended up taking me under her wing and teaching me how to be a mortgage originator. Well, I did so well at that, I actually got recruited from a mortgage bank out of New York City to start a branch for them. And I ended up starting a mortgage branch for them, worked for them, did $300 million worth of mortgages my first year in business.
Wow.
Opened up a second branch, and then the market crashed, and they came in and let me go. And I was crushed. I thought my life was over, right? And I walked out of there and I said, I will never work for anybody ever again in my life but myself. And so what ended up happening, it was when you get a mortgage, you have to get title insurance.
Yep.
And so I would always use the same guy, and he was getting ready to retire. And I went to him and said, I want to buy your business. And he goes, what do you mean you want to buy my business? You don't know one thing about title insurance. I go, I know, but you're going to teach me.
Right.
So I went to work for him for free, and he taught me the whole title industry and Then they sent me to New York to work with all the lawyers, and they taught me how to, read the title, to plot, to do all of that. And I bought his business.
Wow.
And I did that until I invented the screw. And when I invented the screw, I gave the business to my employees, and they still own it today.
Nice. Wow. So, and right before, I want to make sure I don't want to have your face cut off of the screen.
Where is that?
Yeah, that's maybe that's
better.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it seems like this entrepreneur, or did you, I guess, kind of call it an entrepreneur back then, or how did you kind of reconcile with it, or you just knew
That's
that?
crazy.
So then with the SnapIt Screw, how did that come in to be after it seems like a successful run at the mortgage company?
So, and that's pretty funny because my mother, and I can't get myself in this picture.
Yeah, I want to make sure it's centered so that your half of your face isn't cut off. I know that's what I was saying. Maybe I'm not sure if you had
better
or something. Yeah, no, that's perfect. I guess the task now is in terms of trying to maybe keep it there. That's why I was okay.
Okay, so when I bought the title insurance company and worked there, all I worked with was lawyers because that's all who ordered. They were my clients, right?
Yep.
And so I ended up becoming pretty knowledgeable, where the lawyers actually in the area would all come to me if they had a difficult case of the title insurance. But anyway, my mom broke her glasses one day, and she was like 80. And she said, "Can you fix my glasses?" And I took her glasses and I said, "Sure." And an hour later, I was trying to fix her glasses because they were those spring-loaded glasses.
Yep.
And so I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And I would be sitting at the conference table in my office thinking, and people would come in and I'd have tools all over the place, and they'd be going, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to figure out a better way to fix glasses." And I just had one of those aha moments. And so I ended up inventing the screw, and then the lawyers would come in and go, you might have something there, And so anyway, I always tell everybody that was the easy part of the invention. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know anything about patents or to protect it. I didn't even know you had to protect it. I'm like, I got a great idea. Let's go sell it, right?
So how did you kind of learn that as you had this invention that you were sitting on, this great idea that you were sitting on, and maybe even before that, and maybe this is part of the whole process of how you figured it out. How did you, because it seemed like you had maybe an idea or you had something, did you like draw it? Did you kind of put it on paper? How?
I did draw it.
Okay.
I did draw it. And then I went to a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
And sat down with him and explained to him what I was trying to do. And he drew it and did the schematic for me. And then I started shopping at, first I literally did my own provisional. I did some research, and I did like 5 of them, and I just kept mailing them in, and, going, one of these, I just want to cover my butt after, with little knowledge is dangerous, So I ended up doing that, and then I started researching tiny screw manufacturers in the United States. And I found one up in Rochester, New York, and I made a call and said, "Hey, I got this new screw." He was actually an eyeglass manufacturer, screw manufacturer. He did all the tiny ones that for Boss and Lomb and all those other companies. So I went up there and I gave him the schematic, and he was 3rd generation screw maker in his family. And he looked at this drawing and he goes, "Shit." Just like that, he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "You got something here." And he had
the attorney told you, and then a mechanical engineer. So it's like, okay, this is something that I have gotten good feedback from 2 different people.
Yeah. And then he literally made my prototypes for me.
Nice. And so then how did you get, and I guess this is like a side note in the story, because I know a lot of times, especially from when you're kind of just starting out as a smaller inventor, we hear all the time about the process being expensive and things like that. Were you just able to kind of use savings and things that you had saved up from other jobs or other things that you were doing, or did you get like a loan to kind of do all this stuff with?
No, I was blessed that I had saved enough money to, have my own money to do it. I mean, I used every dollar that I had, though.
Oh,
It's a scary, it's a scary thing that you put all your money in one basket, and if that basket doesn't work, you're back to the drawing board, starting your life over. So yeah, I was lucky enough to have enough money, but I spent a ton of money on patents. A ton.
I was going to say we'll definitely get on the money. I know we're talking offline about how much money you spend. I'm like, wow, we'll talk about that here. So the guy, he starts manufacturing. Now, did you have the provisional applications mailed in before?
Yes, before I showed anybody. Yeah.
Nice. And then did this guy, was this like I'm assuming that you had some type of confidentiality agreement or NDA with
Yes,
this?
I did. I had NDA.
Okay.
I mean, I had done a little bit of research of how to do it.
Sounds like
but it was like crazy because I owned a title insurance company. I didn't have a clue what to do next.
That's on the opposite end of the spectrum from patents and trying to kind of figure out this world. So then at what point from, okay, you mailed in a provisional application, you had this manufacturer start kind of making the screws here. At what point, I guess the next point where it was like, okay, maybe some good feedback or something that kind of allowed you to keep going or gave you the confidence to say, okay, I still have something here. I want to keep going, because obviously we get off into it, but this story wasn't always kind of peaches and cream.
No, it was horrible. I tell everybody. So at one point in my life, when I was doing this, and I'm going to say a year, maybe 2 years into it, I was so frustrated because I'm thinking I got this awesome idea and it's better than what's out there, yet I can't get any traction. So I ended up taking it and shoving it in the closet.
Really?
And left it there for like 6 months. And what happened was I broke my glasses. This is no lie. I broke my glasses sitting at my desk when I was working. And reached in the closet and took one of the screws out. And my glasses were fixed in like 10 seconds. And I'm like, oh, this is too good to hang out in the closet. And I took it out and started working on it again. But it literally, I was so frustrated and so, just awful, because you're not bringing in any money.
Right.
You're spending money.
Yep.
You don't know if you're ever going to bring in money. You have something good, but you don't know where to go with it.
So then this is interesting because obviously a provisional application, you have to convert that to a non-provisional within a year. So do you still have these patent applications pending as you kind of shelve this thing, or were they already completed, or
I filed a utility patent within the year.
Okay.
So
so at the time that you shelved it, shelved
I had a patent application. I mean, it was under prosecution.
Okay, so it wasn't an issue patent at that point. So you're still kind of spending money on that, on the process then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, so then you get it back out, and then what was the next happenings or the next thing the events that went down after?
Well, what happened next was I said, I'm going to just start looking at the eyeglass industry to see where I can go with, because this screw saves the optometrist a lot of time, and time is money, as we know. And I'm like, that was my target. See, in the original, I was targeting the consumer, but trying to get into a Walmart or a Walgreens is like pulling teeth one at a time, right? So I said, I'm going to start trying to get into the eyeglass industry where the optometrists are. So I ended up putting a tiny ad, smaller than the square that we're sitting in right now. And it said, SnapIt Screw, inventor, invents, biggest revolution in an optical screw in 50 years. And I actually got a phone call from an optometrist, and he was out of Long Island. His name was Drew Washington. And he was one of those guys who was very mechanical.
Okay.
He fixed over 1 million pairs of glasses in his life, and was always using like tools or designing tools or using paper clips or whatever. And when he seen it, he said to me, "Oh my God." He goes, "Do you have any of those?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Can you FedEx it to me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I had my patent app, I was under prosecution, so I didn't have an issue sharing it. And he got it the next day, and he's like, "Oh my God, girl, you have got something." And he was like my champion. He like led the way for me to get into. He actually hooked me up with a company that is called OptiSource at the time, and I had an appointment with them to go down and see about them being a distributor for me. And it's a funny story because when I got there, the president that I met with of this company opened his desk drawer and had one of my kits in it.
Really?
Yeah. He goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "I think I have one of these in my drawer." And he opened it up. It was one of the kits that I was trying to get out in the market. And it was like, so anyway, I ended up hiring it was so cool. I left there like on cloud nine, but I ended up giving them an exclusive distribution agreement, but they paid me up front for it.
Okay.
And they had to buy the screws from me. So I was able to manufacture the screws in China, make money on the screw, sell it to them at a certain fixed price, and then they were the distributor of it. And they literally broke the market for me.
Wow.
They did that for a couple of years. And at the end of our 2-year distribution agreement, they ended up giving me a licensing deal. And they had sold the company to SLR, which is the largest lens company in the world.
Wow.
So SLR is the one who I have a license with in the USA. I don't have a license with them in Europe where they're actually from. I actually have an office in London right now.
So you still have that license agreement today then?
Yeah, to 2028 when the patents expire.
Wow. So then with the distribution agreement, was that just to distribute to the retailers or to the I guess to the end user then?
To the optometrists, and they could have done whatever they wanted to as far as where they were going with it.
So then when the license agreement, and I'm just kind of going through this process so that I guess the audience understands the difference between the distribution agreement and the license agreement. So the license agreement, when they kind of converted to that, if you will, that's pretty much you being paid off of each unit sold?
Correct.
Okay. And I would have
to this day, I still get a royalty. Every quarter, I get royalties from them.
Nice.
And I was lucky. I got like up front a lot of money when I signed the deal.
So and I'm assuming that upfront money was enough for you to, okay, let's kind of really take this thing further and see how far we can go with it. So with the license agreement, did that not, because I know you said the distribution agreement was an exclusive, was the license agreement a non-exclusive license agreement then?
No, it was exclusive in the United States only, not where I have all my other patents.
Gotcha. Okay, so it was just exclusive to the U.S. So it didn't prevent you, did it prevent you from selling things? Because I know later on you get in like Walmart and some other things going on.
No, I actually stayed on and helped them for a little while, but
nice.
And at the time of the licensing agreement, I was in connection with Walmart at the time.
Okay.
So they ended up taking that account over for me. So once I gave them the licensing agreement, I stayed and helped a little bit, but then I started to develop in my other countries because I wanted to duplicate my efforts, what I did in the U.S. and all the countries that I had patents in.
Right. And so how has that process been? And I definitely want to come back to the Walmart story because I thought that was crazy, especially, having to come back around and how you got met up with the sequel. And I thought that was crazy. But then I guess before we get to that, how was it just kind of being able to try to reduplicate these efforts in other countries since you still, you have patents or, at least patent applications maybe at this time in those?
They're all issued.
Oh, so right. At that time,
at that time, you're right. They were in prosecution.
Okay. So then, how was that process as far as trying to not only just get the patent, but trying to get into license agreements and other things with manufacturers in these different countries?
Hard. But, I got to tell you, LinkedIn is a huge resource for me. I mean, I don't know if people know the power of what LinkedIn can do for you, but I ended up meeting the guy who runs the office in London through LinkedIn.
Really?
Yeah. And he to this day is still with me since 2000 and I'm going to say around 14.
So you're talking about running the office in London?
With SnapIt.
Okay.
So he's like, he's in a lot of the pharmacies there, a lot of the stores. He's dealing with a lot of the big players in the optical industry right now. He redesigned the kit. We just got back into Walmart.
Okay. So are you currently selling selling the kit and selling the screw in London or in Europe, countries in Europe?
All over Europe.
Okay.
Australia and the Middle East.
Nice. So, and this is an interesting question because I know we were talking about this offline, and I know early on you said that you had got a patent with the EPO and that you spent a lot of money to get that patent. So I guess looking back on it, even though you weren't doing anything at that very moment, it seems like you're doing some stuff out there now. So were you? I guess did it maybe pay off long term that I know spent a lot of money to get the patent issued, or maybe not?
No, because everybody makes my screw in China, and so I don't believe, and maybe you have a different opinion, but I don't believe I needed a patent in the EPO, just because the amount of money it cost me to make my screw in China.
Yeah.
If they wanted to manufacture my screw over in Europe, just with the price of stainless steel and what the prices are over there, they'd have been 10 times more expensive than me. So, yeah, they could sell it, but I mean, I would have undercut them. And so I don't think that they would have affected my market just because of the price.
Yeah, so you're looking at it from, okay, even though it's being sold over there, the fact that it's being manufactured in China, even if they did somehow manufactured in Europe, my margins or my price, I could have sold it cheaper for what they would have been to sell it
Exactly.
for. It would eventually went out of business. Okay.
Exactly.
And I guess that's definitely a way to go about it for sure. So then I guess because it was an interesting story, again, just doing some research of you even getting the patent in China, because that wasn't a market or a country that you were looking to go into. So can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because my patent agent had said after we filed the PCT and we were trying to figure out what countries to go in, he said, well, I think you should go into China. And I'm like, I'm not going into China. Why would I do that? They steal everything, right? And he's like, Nancy, they might steal everything today, but 5 years from now, you don't know what's going to happen in China. So he talked me into going into China, and I thank God every day that he did, because I've won 2 lawsuits in China already against infringers, and the cost of litigation in China is like a penny compared to what we pay here in this country. And so I don't even like, if I had somebody infringing in the US, I know they're making it in China, so I could just find their manufacturer and sue their manufacturer over there, because I did have a patent infringement case in the United States, and it cost me $750,000 to defend it.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the last thing I'll say is, one of the things that, people, when they get patents, they need to understand that, it's nice to have a patent, but if you can't defend that patent is useless.
Right.
And in this country, it is a gazillion dollars to defend a patent. It's a lot of money.
And to be honest with you, I'm not sure how long the case took, because that's another thing in the U.S. Not in addition to money, these things can drag on for year after year after year.
10 years.
Yeah. But that's how long it took. 10 years.
Mine was like 6.5.
So $750 seems like a bargain. A lot of times you see these things that are millions, tens of millions of dollars. Maybe those worth of tech companies, and it's a lot, maybe more at stake. But $750 seems like a bargain compared to the numbers
Exactly. So that's one thing that people, when they look at there's a whole picture to look at, not just, they need to be getting advice from somebody that sees the whole picture and knows the direction that the way things can fall out, as far as, okay, I got a patent, but okay, so Microsoft comes and steals your patent. You're going to go up against a company that is billions of dollars? No.
Correct. And I know I'm kind of jumping around everywhere, but and that's an interesting case. I mean, that's an interesting point that you bring up because, a lot of times, obviously this system isn't perfect, and I kind of heard you, and I agree with you that the system it is flawed for the little inventor or the little guy, so to speak. So I guess maybe two questions along that same thing. Do you think, because you hear a lot of people, and especially on LinkedIn, that they complain about it and whatever the case may be, do you think that should kind of maybe stop people from inventing or stop the little guy from inventing because it is maybe not tailored towards the little guy?
I think that the system is flawed. I really do. I think that there should be some systems in place that protects the smaller inventor, but but it's the country, it's all about corporate greed and I call it malignant capitalism. I love capitalism, don't get me wrong, but what we got is malignant. It's like not healthy, and so I always tell people that, you're right. It's, if you don't have a lot of money and you're not ready to really defend what you have, then you need to think the whole process out. You can get people that will back a infringement case if it's a good one.
Right. No, and I was going to say, and you can appreciate this just kind of being in the real estate game. They always say no good deal will go unfunded. If you have a good product, somebody will back it, especially because you do get awarded damages if you come out victorious. So if it's something where it's looking like you have a good chance of coming out victorious, I would imagine that you will have some people willing to kind of fund that case.
Yes.
For you. So I guess with all that in mind, do you think that people should still look to try to invent, even I guess as the system hopefully gets better, or is this maybe a reason why people it should deter? Or
no, I think that people should invent. I think that innovation is the key to keeping this country moving. And I don't think people should be afraid of it. I think that if you have fear if you're fearful in the process, then you won't move forward. I always say that fear stops you dead in your tracks and you don't move forward. So you just got to take fear out of the equation and be bold and brave and believe in what you have. And the tenacity, I think, is the biggest ingredient to the whole process. Is just that you have to, keep on fighting. And it's a lonely road to hoe by yourself. It's like nobody's gonna put the fire under you. Nobody's going to give you the incentive. Nobody's going to give you the discipline. It all has to come from within yourself. And I think it takes a special kind of person to actually bring it from concept to fruition. It's like, I think they say it's like 1% of small inventors actually bring it to the point where they make capital and make money off of it.
Right.
And it's not because their ideas aren't good.
Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. Do you think that, and this is a thought that I just had as we're speaking, it seems like you and a lot of inventors go at it alone, not alone, so to speak, but as a solo inventor, and it seems like you had got some good help and some breaks along the way and kind of met some great people. Do you think that inventors should kind of more so look to develop, not necessarily a team that is just looking to get paid and not do anything, because obviously we don't want that, but just like a team, or maybe a small team of 2 or 3 people that maybe act as a support and just kind of, one, keep giving you the motivation or the encouragement to go along, but also bring something to the table in terms of knowledge that can help you out when you kind of face different roadblocks. How do you kind of?
Yeah, I think that, and I think that, there's other ways other than money. I mean, you can give shares in a company, and if you give shares in a company, then the person that's taking the share obviously believes in what you're doing. Although you just don't give them shares, you put a performance in there for the shares, because there's a lot of BSers out there that'll promise you the moon and they give you nothing. So I've learned to cover my butt in that sense too, that if you're giving something up, you do it for performance only. You don't do it because they say they're going to do something.
Right.
Put guidelines in there, like, like, for instance, if you have a business like I have now, and I wanted somebody to come in and be a partner of mine, and they said that they know all the sale, all the retailers and stuff. Well, I would put a dollar limit on it. You have to bring in this much money a year before you vest or whatever, before, so you just can't give it away. I mean, I can't tell you, I'll tell you this story real quick. So I had one of the sharks from Shark Tank reach out to me and said that they were going to help me.
Okay.
And I had to pay him $10,000. And I paid him $10,000 and they never did anything.
Really?
And I reached out to the company and said, if he doesn't give me my money back, then I'm going to file a lawsuit. And they gave me my money back.
So, but do you think that was, and obviously we don't have to say the shark's name, but do you think that's like a ploy or kind of a marketing scheme, or like why do you?
This was a marketing scheme.
Okay.
And there's a lot of marketing schemes out there where they come and they say, I mean, the biggest one that I know of, and I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me and tried to get it. Thank God I knew about it, but, oh, give us $50,000. We'll make a video. We'll get it out there. We'll do a infomercial. We'll do blah, 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 right? And they do nothing. They give you a commercial and, I always tell people, I mean, and I don't know if this is jaded or what, and it could be, I always say, don't give anybody any money up front.
Right.
There's no reason to. If somebody believes in what you're doing, there's ways to negotiate where you don't come up with anything until you get the performance out of them.
Right. Yeah, and I love that idea of tying somebody's shares or whatever you want to call it into like performance, because again, typically if I'm giving equity or some sort in the company, now I'm saying that, hey, I believe in this product, because if I didn't believe it, I wouldn't, try to exchange, performance or whatever the case may be, for equity. Instead, I would just try to get the money up front and kind of go about my business. But if I believe in the company enough to say, hey, I will exchange services or whatever the case may be, and you don't have to pay me money, just pay me, shares of the stock or equity in the company, and that's somebody saying, hey, I really believe in it. And I actually work out of it.
Yeah, and especially when the inventor doesn't have any of their own revenue to finance it. So it's easy for them to work around it that way. But let me say this, don't give up more than 49%, because you always want to be in charge. I have a friend who was, it was a horrible story, but he started a clothing line that's very successful now.
Okay.
And he got so big so fast that he needed money because he kept getting orders and he had to finance the goods, right? Yep. So he diluted his company so much that he didn't have the majority of the shares anymore. And they came in and let him go from his own company. Yeah.
But I'm assuming he still had the equity in the company, didn't he, or did they buy him out?
They diluted him because, so like say they were investors in, like they wanted 20%, they gave him this much money, and then he had to get more money, so he gave up more percentage. And by the time you know it, he didn't have the majority of the percentage of his own company, and they came in and they let him go.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's so much action going on out there. Everybody tells me, Nancy, you should write a book, man, with the stories you have. And I'm like, maybe one day.
Yeah, right on, exactly. I would definitely buy it. Just to hear some of those stories. I can just talk. Speaking of stories, can you maybe talk about or go through the Walmart story? Because I thought this story was crazy.
It is crazy. So when I had my kid, I actually was able to get an appointment at Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas, where the headquarters are.
Okay.
So I flew there, had an appointment with the buyers in the optical department, and they loved it. Oh, I love it, blah, blah, blah. And I was so excited. I was like on cloud nine when I left there. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get in market, whatever. And I leave there and never hear back from them. Email them, all that, never, nothing. So then I got a second appointment there and I go down again. Same exact thing happens to me. I go, they love it, never hear back from them. So Walmart has this competition every year and it's called Get on the Shelf. And you put it on a 1-minute video, and it's all social media driven. So you have to get votes for your product. And the person who has the top 3 people who have the most votes win and get on the shelf at Walmart. Well, I had no idea even about social media back then. I mean, my kid was in college and I called him up and I said, hey, Mike, you got to help me. I got to get all your friends to vote for me. And he's like laughing at me and he's like, Ma, come on. He's like, you're not going to get enough votes for my friends. You got to think of something other than that, right? And I said, okay. So I ended up thinking about, how the Today Show and Good Morning America shows in New York. I ended up making a screw outfit that was SnapIt. It was actually the screw, and it was like a costume, and that you couldn't see. I mean, it was a screw walking around, right? And I made these cards up that said, "Get on the shelf. Please text this number to help me win a place on the shelves at Walmart." And I would give everybody a kit who would text. I would make them do it right then and there, right? Well, I ended up getting on the Today Show and on Good Morning America. And they loved it so much. I have like Lester holding a big sign that says, vote SnapIt Screw, text it to this number, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up being one of the top 3 winners.
Wow. Out of how many?
There were 5,000
Wow.
videos. So they informed me that I have won one of the top 3. I think I was second. I think somebody beat me. I think I was the second position. And that, they said, well, now you'll get on the shelf on e-commerce. And I went, what?
I thought this was for the shelves of the actual store.
It wasn't. It was for getting on their e-commerce website to sell on their website. And I was devastated. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right?
Right.
And so just another up and down in the entrepreneurial world, you're high 1 minute and sick to your stomach the next. So I was so discouraged. I just, I cried. And but I always thought there was a reason for it, Okay. Well, about 3 weeks later, I get a call from Walmart and they're having their shareholders meeting in Bentonville. And I mean, there's a gazillion people there, like 50,000 people go to this shareholders meeting. And all the artists that sell CDs and stuff in their store, like Justin Timberlake and Mariah Carey, and all of them were there. And they ended up flying me there first class.
Really?
And putting me in a hotel with all these musicians. And it was kind of like, oh, wow, well, this is getting better, right? So they had asked us 3 people to talk because they have a thing at Walmart where they have on one Saturday a month, they make their managers for all the Walmarts in the world go to this meeting, and it's virtual, or some of the people there go. And they had asked us to talk. So I go in there and the CEO of Walmart introduces us, right? And we give our little speeches and we're done speaking. And his name is Bill Simon at the time. And I see him standing alone. And I'm like, oh man, my chances now, right? So I go over to him and I said, hi, Bill. And he goes, hi. And I go, I got a question for you. And he goes, sure, Nancy, what do you need? I said, I need you to help me penetrate how to get my product on the shelves at Walmart. And he looked at me and he goes, you're not on the shelves? And I go, no. He goes, oh my God. He goes, I love your product. And he pulls out his wallet. He gives me his business card. He's got his email on it. And he looked at me and he said, you email me and I promise I'll get back to you.
Wow.
And that was on a Friday. So on Saturday, I go home. Saturday night, I email him. I get an email instantaneous. I'll never forget it. Like 10 minutes later that says, Nancy, I'm copying my senior most merchandiser on this email. He will get a hold of you. And it said, I love your product, Bill.
Wow.
That was on Saturday. On Sunday, I get an email from the senior merchandiser that said, Nancy, somebody will be calling you tomorrow, Monday. So the next day I get a call is from them damn buyers that I met with twice that had to eat crow and order 150,000 kits from me.
Oh, no. So how did, I guess, what was that conversation like? Because they had to be
Exactly.
like, did they like apologize? Or they like, how did they try to?
No, they just acted like nothing was wrong. And you know what? At that point, I didn't care. And I knew, right? They knew, I knew. I was just playing nice. Well, I knew. It was hilarious. I mean, it's a funny story because one of the things I teach when I teach entrepreneurship is that, you know, people tell you to go through the traditional ways. You can be sitting at your desk forever that way. Yeah. There are ways to get in that, I mean, I've sent people to their home, the bigger, like directors of companies, mailed them stuff at their houses, you know, because, you know, there is a traditional way, but entrepreneurs aren't traditional. We don't think like a normal person. So when I tell people, I don't go through buyers, they go, what do you mean you don't go through buyers? I don't.
Yeah, no, and it seems like you have to get creative, especially these days more than ever to stand out or trying to get your product or invention in front of people. And I think that's a good point. If you're looking to go through the traditional route and try to get things seen or heard that way, then it seems like you're going to be waiting for a while. Because again, it seems like, and even then, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I think you said you had went up to him. If you never went up to the CEO
Right.
of Walmart, nothing would have never happened. But just having that courage to say, hey, I'm going to go up to this guy and whatever happens, happens. But I'm going to go ask how many people would have asked being at that meeting and maybe
I was the only one.
I'm going to go to the CEO and say, why isn't my product? I need to get my product on. I think like that's really ballsy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm gutsy because I believe in myself and I believe in the product, you know, and you know, you're right. If I never did that, I wouldn't have got it in there. Wouldn't have got there.
Yep.
I'd have been still dealing with them same buyers, you know.
So then I guess out of comparison, because I know you said they had end up, you know, buying 150,000 or 2 orders of 150,000. I think how did that compare out of curiosity to the online shelf that the content?
I didn't sell anything.
Really?
No, because look at all the products that are on this shelf. How are they going to find my little tiny kit? Right?
No, that's true. That's true. And then have Walmart placed like orders since that?
Yeah, they just started replacing orders.
Really?
Yeah, but not through, I mean, I don't deal with them personally anymore, but my guy in London is actually dealing with them now.
Okay. So it seems like the guy in London kind of deals with maybe everyone more or less?
He does a lot, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the retailers.
Wow. No, that's, so with the 25 patents, and I do want to save some time to talk about the pickleball and the holding, because I think that's interesting as well. But with the 25 patents, are all those surrounding the SnapIt Screw, or were some of those kind of dealing with other products?
No, they're all the SnapIt Screw. And well, I originally had a patent for eyeglass jewelry. So there was one that's not with the screw, but yeah, most of them are with the screw. I have 5 U.S. patents on that little screw.
Oh.
And you know, you think, how can you have that many? I mean, I've just probably got 100 different claims for a tiny little screw, you know?
And this is, and I'm glad you said that, because this is the part where the patent agent or the patent attorney makes his money. To take this thing, whether how big or how small it is, and say, how can I claim this thing in every possible way to prevent infringers, not necessarily prevent infringers, but protect you so that if an infringer come to try to knock this thing off, we are covered. Right. So I think that's where the patent attorney comes in, or the patent agent makes his money based off that. And a lot of people don't know. You can read a document, a patent document, or issued patent, and for the most part, or not for the most part, the claims are the most important thing of that, because when you're in court trying to defend this thing, they're going to look at the claim and say, okay, what does this thing protect? And go ahead.
And that's, that's a really important part of it, because I didn't understand patents. And even after the patent was written, I mean, I had to rely on his expertise, because patent language is like a foreign language. It is not English. And so, you have to find somebody that knows the language of the patent office, because I mean, even now I can read my patents and I go, what the hell is that saying? I don't know what it's saying.
And you're not alone in that. I probably write, I've written hundreds of applications over my time as a patent attorney, and some of these inventions are from serial engineers or serial inventors with these different companies, and they will always email me back, hey, I have tens of patents and I still don't understand this. So do whatever it is that you need to do with it, but I don't understand your guys' language, because it is really a different language, and I guess that's why they say
that's why you got to go to law school to learn it.
Right, exactly. So that's man. I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm overjoyed talking to you. So then I do want to switch gears here for a second. So you have the I guess started picking up the hobby of pickleball and started to get into, I guess, the clothing. Can you kind of talk about that here really quick?
Yeah. So I retired from SnapIt Screw and was living on the beach in Daytona Beach, Florida. And I was a runner in college, and I would go around this track where all these pickleball courts were, and I would run every day, and people would call me over and go, why don't you come play this game? I go, I never played a sport in my life. I mean, I track, that was it, right? I go, I don't know how to hold a paddle. And they go, oh, come on, we'll teach you. So finally one day I went over and they were teaching me how to play, and I just fell in love with the game. And it was so social. It's a lifestyle that, it's the fastest growing sport in this country right now. And a lot of the big wheel, I mean, you can see LeBron James just bought a team, Tom Brady bought a team. I mean, it is getting huge. Well, I would go to the courts and play every day and look at everybody and go, we all look like tennis players. And I go, I'm going to come out of retirement and start a pickleball clothing line. And they're all like, you're out of your mind. Well, when I did it, I thought that it was just going to be, okay, I'm going to start this little company and I'm going to travel across the country and play in tournaments and use that as a means to write off my trips, right? Well, wrong. It's, so I started the first labeled pickleball clothing line in the world about 3.5 years ago. And now this is funny because, I just told you how hard it was to get into the other stores, right? I had Dick's Sporting Goods call me.
Really? Now, was that was just out the blue, or was it
well, they probably Googled pickleball clothing line and found me online. And yes, it was a cold email from a buyer at Dick's. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And Zappos reached out to me. All these companies, Tennis Warehouse, Tennis Express, they're coming after me, not me going after them. I'm like, wow, I thought my screw was such a good idea. This is way better than that damn screw. All I have to do is sit at my desk.
That's man, you have the Midas touch.
Well, I have the God's touch.
I like that. So then, out of curiosity, because you had mentioned it being, seems like, tennis and refer to tennis. What is the difference between? And this is something I'm just curious to know for myself as well. What's the difference between tennis apparel and pickleball apparel? Because I guess I didn't know.
You have to go to my website. So all of my clothes bring the theme of the sport into the clothes. So I actually start with a painting. I take a painting and turn it into digital print. Okay. Spin our own fabric over in Guatemala, dye the fabric, and then sublimate the print onto our clothes. So when you look at our clothes, there's pickleballs on it. There's all different kinds of pickleball scenes. So it's definite. I mean, it's not a traditional white skirt. It's very colorful and very and people love it.
Wow.
It's crazy.
So now, because you already, in terms of intellectual property IP, you're already familiar with it. You have went through it time and time again with the SnapIt Screw. So I guess, how do you go about protecting the IP at this point? Do you kind of consider say, I'm a veteran, I'm an OG, I kind of know what it is, what I
I
need to
just
do?
copyright everything.
Yep, there you go. There you go. I like.
Copyright all my prints.
Yep, I like that.
And that way nobody can steal them. But if you go to pickleballbella.com, I started with 5 skirts 3.5 years ago. I have 16 prints, 2 different styles. I have pickleball bags that match, hats, paddles that match.
Wow.
And it's exploding. And I go all over the country to different tournaments, and I set up booths and sell sell. I mean, Dick's sells. I go to Dick's sportygoods.com and put in Pickleball Belly. You can see all my stuff there.
Oh.
And Amazon's a big seller of mine. Yeah, so this was a lot easier the second time around.
No, yeah, and we'll definitely put the website link in the description once the interview drops. And it seems like this is definitely keeping you busy these days.
Yeah, I'm going to do it for another 2 years, and then I'm going to retire for real. Then I'm going to start helping other inventors. I help them now. I'm on the board of directors at Stetson University for their entrepreneurship program. And I spend time with the Chook kids over there, teaching them and sharing stories and telling them the do's and don'ts and my experiences. And yeah, I've helped quite a few entrepreneurs take off. And I don't charge them. I just do it because I feel like God put me in a good place and gave me a lot of good experience and bad. And I like to prevent other people from making the mistake. I wish I had me when I was doing it, because, I would have prevented myself from so many headaches.
Right. No, and I definitely understand. And that's the great thing I always say when I'm trying to, find a mentor. I go to somebody who has done it, not someone who's theoretical with it or someone who hasn't been through the fire. I want to go someone who's not only been through the fire, but preferably have had success going through the fire. And you definitely have had success going through the fire. So I would love, I'm sure any inventor or entrepreneur coming up would have loved to be mentored by you to
No, thank you.
understand the do's and don'ts of I guess entrepreneurship and inventorship.
Yeah, it's I have a son now. He's 34. You should see him. He is unbelievable entrepreneur. I mean, he is in the real estate business.
Nice.
And he goes to auctions and he buys a property and flips the contracts. Doesn't even close on them.
Really? No, that's interesting, because I know I was telling you offline that's kind of the real estate. I just understand real estate, and I was doing that earlier on because I've been in it for about 10 years. So the first 3 or 4 years I was going to tax auctions where the city foreclosed on the property.
Yeah,
I was buying them, and I'll fix them up and rent them out. But he's doing that and just,
You don't even have to close on them.
well, I guess how does
He
that
signs the contract. So he's in New York. And he goes to the auction. They have 30 days to close in New York on an auction, on a foreclosure auction. And he flips it over to an investor between the time he buys it and the time, and then he assigns the contract. He make himself 20 grand. He probably does, I don't know,
couple hundred deals?
a lot. And then like there are other ones where he'll buy and keep, and he's got some Airbnbs going on. He just bought a 9,000 square foot house on Saratoga Racetrack that he's going to make a couple $1 million on. I mean, but I taught him how to do that. I actually flipped houses back in the day when I owned the title insurance company.
More than 500.
Yeah, I did. And then the market took a nasty turn in 2008, and I lost a lot of money. Yeah. And so I keep trying to tell him now that, you're in the thick of things and things are going so good, you don't even pay attention to the warning signs around you. And I'm like telling him now, Michael, you got to be careful, because the market is starting to, it's going to go, this country is going to be 2008 soon.
Yeah.
I believe that, So, But just going through that, I mean, I thought my life was over because I had lost so much money, and I was like, my whole identity was wrapped up in the money issue. And I mean, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it taught me that this life is not about how much money you have in the bank. And I'm glad I lost it all to start all over again, because now I have it in perspective. And you know what's funny about that is because it doesn't mean as much to me, I make more of it.
Yeah, for sure. That's how it is. So
It's just unbelievable how that works.
you're absolutely right. When you're thinking about it and when you kind of try to intentionally make more of it, then it seems like it escapes you. But when you don't think about it and you're just trying to just really provide, I always say at least provide value to the world, that's when kind of things really start to come back tenfold, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, we're going to be friends, you and me. We think alike.
Yeah, no, hey, Nancy, I'm telling you, I've kind of started this podcast and I've probably done 50 interviews or so now, from athletes to inventors to, businessmen and women. And I was like, by far, just preparing for you and just kind of listening, do some research and listening to past interviews. I'm like, I'm going to enjoy this.
Fun.
No, for sure. So I guess I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're coming up on an hour. I guess any closing words to like the audience as they're, maybe, looking at trying to kind of dip their toe or their foot into this whole entrepreneur, this inventor.
Yeah, just believe in yourself. You got to push forward. You can't give up. I mean, I have so many people that I've helped that have given up because they don't understand that this is, I mean, it is a grueling, it's like a marathon. It's not a 100-yard dash. And there are some bad times you're going to go through where you feel alone and like you're never going to get ahead.
Right.
And, but you just have to believe in what you're doing, I think, and reach out for help from people who have done it. Don't go to somebody like you said that you got to go to somebody who's a winner that's already won in the arena, Yep. Don't go to somebody who's struggling,
Right. Yep.
And you got to go to somebody who isn't really, I mean, money motivated is okay, but it can't be the top of what they're trying to do to help you. You go to somebody who, they can be money motivated, but that shouldn't be their initial motivation to help you.
Correct.
So.
No, and I like that. And kind of even going back to, like you said, it's a journey, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I'm pretty sure you looking back on it. I know earlier on you talked about, just having the time where you shelved the SnapIt Screw. And I'm pretty sure, man, just kind of, I guess hindsight is 2020, but it seems like that would have been the worst thing that you could have done if you would have just kind of left it shelved and not got back into it. Because, although it was, sometimes a difficult road, it seems like it just seemed like it paid dividends in your life. So that's.
Let me leave you with one last story about SnapIt. So after I took it off the shelf, and I was like 3 months later, and I was all frustrated all over again, of course. And I lived out in Washington State, and I would walk on this trail every day, and I'd go 2 miles down and 2 miles back every day. And at the 2-mile mark, up in a tree, there were these 2 eagles that were always there. So I said, God, if I'm supposed to be doing this, make sure that those eagles are there today. So I get on my sneakers, I go down there, get down to the trees, and the eagles are not there. And I was crushed. I'm like, oh my God. So I turn around and I walk back the other 2 miles, and 100 yards from my house, the eagles flew over my head. I had never seen those eagles anywhere but on those trees. I just started crying because I just couldn't believe it. And that was the pinnacle for my story, that I knew I was going in the right directions. When them eagles flew over my head, I was like, holy cow. It was crazy. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think that's the best way to leave out on. So I think again, hopefully, TEI audience, you got something from this. This was a very informative interview, and it was entertaining. I just love Nancy's personality, and until next time, TEI family, We will see you later.